no food, and there'll be food on the other side of the hive.
Oh.
So I might reach in and move the frames around a little bit just to put food closer to them.
So this is leftover honey, right?
Nothing. Yeah. Well, that's basically the food source through the winter is the honey you left in the fall.
How much do you have to leave?
So,
I mean, percentage-wise, do you think?
I try to leave about 80 pounds, 90 pounds of honey on the hive for the winter.
Okay. Some
people leave more, some people leave less. If you're in, Alabama or Georgia, I presume you could leave a lot less.
Sure,
because they have their season where they're going to be able to get food source all year. But if you live in Maine, Wisconsin, I guess that you would, have to leave a little bit more as insurance.
Do they go completely dormant in the winter?
What they do is they actually keep, they vibrate, and they have a cluster. In this cluster, they generate heat. So the bees in the middle that are warm will work their way to the outside, and the bees that are cold will work their way into the inside. And they'll keep changing spots to warm up and cool down, and the queen in the center will be maintained at about 93 degrees.
Wow. So they're basically doing that sharing body heat thing like, anybody would do.
Right. So when she starts laying eggs, all depending on the size of the cluster, she can do the build-up, in the beginning of January. She'll lay as many eggs as that cluster can support. So if that cluster can support 2,000 eggs in 21 days, after those eggs start to hatch, that cluster will get bigger and she'll be able to lay more eggs.
Oh.
They have to providing they have enough food, the cluster can keep getting bigger and bigger, and the hive population is going to keep going up until about June. Then they start cutting down to go into winter.
Okay. The pouring sound you hear is more of David's sweet sourwood mead from 2013 going into my glass. I have to reach way over the dog to get to the mead bottle. It's like such a chore. All right, so come springtime then, whenever it is that the soil can be worked and plants start coming up, the bees start to stir, right?
Right, and they'll start getting in. So I'll start going in, and what I'm going to do is look for swarm cells, and that means that the hive is going to probably swarm.
Mm-hmm.
So now that leaves me with 2 or 3 things I can do. I can split my hives, take the swarm cells out, put them in a nucleus box, and leave the queen and make a new queen in my nucleus box to grow another hive. I can do that, or I can take the swarm cells out and just keep my queen in that hive and stop them from swarming. So it all depends on how I come through my winter, how many hives I want to end up with, but usually it's constantly, I know so-and-so lost the hive, I know this guy lost the hive, or this guy wants to get started, so I'll try to make splits for my friends.
Okay.
Because if we buy bees here, usually a nucleus hive, which is 4 or 5 frames and a laying queen, will be about $125.
Okay, so that's just
so you
the
save
bees.
some money if you can get them to split themselves.
Right.
Interesting. And is there a way you can encourage that, or do they just do it if they do it?
Oh, yeah, you could encourage. Well, you could, you could make your own queens through grafting, and or you can just put fresh eggs. You can make a split in the hive, and the hive usually goes on 2 pheromones. One is freshly laid eggs, and the other one's a pheromone of a queen. If you have freshly laid eggs and no queen pheromone, the hive will make a queen. And by doing that, they will feed some of the eggs, some of the fertilized eggs, which are female eggs, royal jelly, and they'll make a queen cell. And that cell will hatch a queen in 16 days, and she'll go out and mate after she's hatched, and she'll come back and she'll be the queen in that hive.
Okay.
Now, if you could do that with a couple frames, and you could move your hives, you could move your frames into different hives or nukes. In the summertime it's very easy, but in the wintertime it's not so easy, because you need the drones to be flying, and the drones are the male bees, which the queens mate with. So you can't really make queens from, it all depends where you are, from like October till March. Once your bees start producing drones, then you're right into the swarm season.
And do you call that grafting a hive, is it?
You could graft the queen cells, which is taking the eggs and putting them into cups and putting them into a hive that has no queen. And they'll feed those eggs royal jelly, and they'll make queen cells from those eggs.
Oh.
Huh. And that's called grafting, is it?
Right. And, they make special frames where you take each cell out, and you can hatch each cell individually, and they put protective cups on them. I don't do any of that. I know a couple guys who do it. It's fascinating to see what people can do.
Very much so.
But, beekeeping is like brewing. You can get in as deep as you want.
Interesting. So, how much, and I'm sure there's people out there who are wondering this, how much time does one reasonably need to allocate to know that you're going to take good care of your bees?
Usually at first it's probably an hour a week. Let's say you had 2 hives. And as you get used to it, you can go a little faster. After a couple of years, I'm sure you can do it in, 10 or 15 minutes if you really want to just go in and take a quick peek and get out. And, some people it takes longer.
No, I could see turning it into like my bee meditation, where the hive time is the away time and the me time and just me and the bees.
Well, that's the easy part. But when you start looking at extraction, and now you're taking the honey and you're bringing it in, extracting it, straining it, that starts to add up too. It's not just, 1, 2, 3, you take it out of the comb and you put it in. And, like I have an extractor's $1,500, The hot knife to cut open the wax is $100, or it used to be $100. Now they sell the cheap ones from China on eBay for $20.
Yeah.
But all of that stuff, starts to add up. So this is why I say, go see if you like the hobby before you, invest $3,000-$4,000 in it. You can go as deep as you want.
Okay. I'm updating things. Apparently our first part actually broadcast, which is good.
Oh, great.
Yeah, when it cut off, it just auto-saved it up to the cloud, which is good. So we may have lost a little bit, but not all of it's gone. This is really... I'm
splice it back together later.
Yeah, actually, I'm just going to do part 1 and part 2. Make it easy.
Not fair.
Yeah. No sense messing with it, and it's there. Considering I think I'm not going to mess and tempt fate. So, you got, 4 hives now, Bob?
I think I went into winter with 7.
Oh, okay. And which...
Well, 2 of them I rescued off a building in Manhattan in August. Somebody illegally placed them, and a guy called me up and asked me if I could remove them. So I went down there to remove them, and I went on like an early morning. It was raining. I looked at the hives. It was like 2 inches of bees on the front of each hive. The population was so high, and there was only 1 box, that I had to go get a second box to put on to get all the bees inside.
Wow.
So I did them. I carried them down. They were on a 4th-story walk-up. They were about 80 pounds each. So I'm walking through the hallway of this building on like a 90-degree day with this hive all sealed up with screens and staples with moving straps around them.
Holy cow.
Poor bees.
Yeah, well...
I bet they were ticked off bees, too, man.
No, they were fine. They really don't get too ticked off. So I threw them in the car. I drove them up 40 miles north to where I keep my bees now. And I laid them out, waited a couple hours. They calmed down and pulled the screen off. They came right out. They were ticked off for about 30 seconds. Then after that, they're fine.
Is that how it works as the hive grows? You put another box on top of it, or?
Yeah, and this way you build up. If you put too much, you can get parasites. You can get wax moths. You can get small hive beetles. You don't want to give them too much room that they can't control it. And wax moth is a parasite that comes in and lays eggs on top of the wax and lays through the wax and the honey. And they can destroy your hives if you have a weak hive.
Yeah, I know about those wax moths. I was making a whole hive mead, and when I got into secondary, I noticed that there were these things that look like mealworms floating in the mead, and it turned out turned out to be the larva of the wax moth.
Yes.
High protein mead.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's just nutrients.
Yeah. So, have you noticed that? I mean, how are you doing with losing bees in the wintertime? Do you lose a lot of them?
No.
Wow.
No, not so much. You lose one here and there, but that's expected.
Oh, sure, yeah. So it sounds like, I mean, because I know that, like, some of the larger beekeepers, that the commercial beekeepers that I've spoken with, like, we had Kirk Jones on last week. He's St. Ambrose Mead, Michigan, and also Sleeping Bear Farms, which is, they've got a honey production facility in Florida, and then their home base is in Michigan, a couple thousand hives. But he was saying that, in many years they'll lose up to a third of their hives, and it sounds like the more hives you got, the more likely you are to lose a significant percentage of them.
I would definitely tend to believe that.
Yeah.
With 4 or 5 or 10, you could really look in there and see what's going on. And, you could, if you see a problem, it's right there, because you take the time to go. When you have 100 hives, you're not looking in every hive. You
True.
might look them up, see if there's swarm cells, or, you might even say that, hey, if they swarm, I'll take that, I can accept the loss. I can accept that 25 of them are going to swarm.
That is really interesting. So, okay, they wake up in the spring, the flowers start to bloom, the bees do their little bee dance, and then go out and find the stuff, bring back nectar, and create honey. So, once spring kicks off in earnest, are you out there checking the honey supply and the bee propagation, if you will?
I do about every 10 to 12 days I check.
Okay,
I try to get 8 to 10, so I'm going in there about every 8 to 10 days. And what I do is I look for swarm cells, and then I figure out what I want to do with the hive. I check, see if they need more boxes, see if anything's full. If something's full, I take it off. I bring it home, I extract it, and then I'll bring the wet box back the next week. So the wet box is something that I've extracted. It still has wet honey in it and sugar. I'll put that right on top of the hive.
Okay. So how long does it take them to fill up the hive, as it were, to get that 60, 80 pounds or whatever?
It all depends on the flow, on the honey flow, the nectar flow that's out there.
Oh, okay.
If they have an available flow, some beekeepers will tell you my bees will fill up that whole hive in, 6 days.
Whoa.
But, other guys, all depends what they have.
Sure, yeah.
If they have a great nectar flow, then you don't have enough boxes to put on your hives.
Wow. Do you move yours around depending on what you're trying to get,
I don't.
or do they pretty much stay there?
Nope. I have mine in the same spot. That's it.
Okay.
I'm not a commercial beekeeper. I'm not, I don't sell pollination services. I do it because I like it. I do it because it's a great hobby, and I do it for the honey.
I could see hauling them off to,
enjoy it.
like, say, a pecan orchard just 'cause pecan honey, or something like that. I know if I decide to set up a couple of hives, I have a friend who owns a pecan orchard, and that's going to be the first place I ask to put my bees. Be like, pecan honey, yes. So you're probably getting like a pretty good varietal then. Are you getting a light spring sort of wildflower clover mix, or?
Right, I get a nice light wildflower, and then I get like a darker, more complex fall honey. That's usually what I get.
I'll bet you're getting some.
Wouldn't really. Yeah.
Are you still in New York, or are you in Jersey now?
Yeah, I'm in Westchester County.
In Westchester County, okay. Is there a lot of like goldenrod or anything? I mean, what kind of floral sources do you have around there?
There's some.
Yeah.
I just think it's such a variety. I can only count it as wildflower.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't say I get this or that.
Yeah, yeah. It's interesting that it's so much darker in the fall, and one has to wonder what they're getting.
It's not a lot darker. You just get that more complex, that less floral character that I get in my spring honey.
Interesting. It's just so fascinating how much it can change. You'd think, okay, hive, flowers, honey. You don't really think about hive, flowers, and depends on when, what kind of honey you get. So I think that's kind of neat.
Yeah. Well, but it's an organic. It can change every year. Usually in the spring you get, dandelions come up, or the locust comes in, and you get a bad rainstorm for 3 days in a row, and it knocks all the blossoms off the trees. There goes your whole honey flow. Your whole honey flow from locust is gone. That's not coming back.
Yeah.
The flowers are already ruined by the heavy rain. So you move on.
Yeah.